We need a Green New Deal, and to be in the broader sense of what scale it needs to be. Um, we can't leave this to the market because green capitalism is failing. We had a great piece a while ago from Jonathan Neal in Tribune. Outside of the Labour reporting, and by that I mean on the trade union movement, the Green New Deal and climate policies are actually the most covered topic on our site. We cover them regularly. We think it's a real solution not only to the climate crisis but to social problems as well. Jonathan Neal's piece was alarming, though. It showed that in 2019, out of the total energy produced across the world, only 2% was in wind and solar. That, of course, is we hear bigger headline numbers because people talk about capacity. They talk about what could be produced if the wind always blew and if the sun always shone. That doesn't happen. People talk about renewable and they include within that nuclear, which is a whole other debate. But when we talk about the actual wind and solar, which is what people have been telling us for decades now, that the private sector is going to sort out, the big corporations are going to sort it, they're not sorting it out, and they won't sort it out. And so we need a response that wins a Green New Deal on the scale that we fought for in the Labour Party, which is £250 billion worth of investment in an industrial program which radically transforms the nature of the economy, which very quickly transitions the entire energy infrastructure of the country to renewables. A program of building a manufacturing base which allows us to actually put in place the technologies necessary to fight for decarbonisation across the economy. I'll give you an example of this. There was we had, when we were looking at the prospect of retrofitting homes under Labour's proposals, we ran into immediate problems. There wasn't enough scaffolding in the country in the first instance to even do the level of retrofitting that we wanted to do, because Britain's manufacturing capacity has been so incredibly diminished in recent years that what we were actually talking about in a 3 and 4 and 5 year period wasn't possible unless you radically transform the manufacturing base. And that's before you even got to questions like insulation. That has to change. We have to change the entire transport infrastructure of the country. There is no way to continue with a ludicrously inefficient, ineffective transport system based so much on the use of the car and with such terribly underfunded, in many cases privatized and fragmented public transport systems, and transition to green policies and hit net zero can't be done. So we have to do that. We have to work on things like winning public procurement and having public contracts be written in such a way that they have very strong climate guarantees written within them. The big parts of what the state deals with, sectors like health, there has to be a Green New Deal that works within the NHS system, which means that the NHS is being checked for its climate output. But look, all of this has to happen, right, within a context where we don't have the immediate prospect of a radical left-wing government, which makes things very difficult. And that means, as John says, we have to build a movement that is capable of fighting and winning those things. My origins are in the Labour movements, where I come from, the trade union movements. My background as an activist, as an organizer. I think the Labour movement is making a big development on these questions. It's moved leaps and bounds even in the last 5 years. And I saw that within our discussions. Doesn't mean it's at all perfect. There's still a lot of pushback, but it's far less than there used to be. And the reason for that is that we're winning people over to the idea of the just transition, to the idea of well-paid, unionized jobs in green technology that can actually be part of rebuilding deindustrialized and post-industrial areas, and that we can fight through public investment and creation of new public industries to create a whole new sector of the economy, which is going to be able to sustain decent, well-paying jobs and people's livelihoods. But we have to go beyond that in our imaginary too, because the real reality of all this is there is no way of solving the climate crisis in one country, and there's no way of solving the climate crisis within this system, unless we use all of those restructuring parts that I discussed in the economy to fundamentally reorganize the economy around production for need rather than production for profit and private interest. You're never going to solve the climate crisis, because so long as things are always produced to make more wealth and to accumulate more wealth for a tiny minority of people who control the politics and economics of this planet, there will never be an incentive for them to restructure and create a renewable, a sustainable system which is actually dealing with not only the climate crisis, but the broader ecological crisis in general.